Hello, everyone, and happy first day of Halloween, or as you muggles would call it, October. Tonight is the first of a series of 31 tales of Halloween, all original, written by me and narrated by my boyfriend. This is a story about Margaret Thatcher, the events that led to her husband's death, and what she did after. Now, if you're thinking about the Prime Minister, you might be wondering if this is a true story. It is, in fact, not a true story. It's not even about the Prime Minister, so get that thought out of your head. This is just a story about another Margaret Thatcher, who would really prefer if you would call her Margie. Thank you for coming to my channel. If you liked this video, please give it a like, or don't. Honestly, I still think that I'm mostly talking into a void, but I'm here to entertain you if you happen to stumble upon it.
Margaret had always hated her name. Although she insisted on being called Margie, her parents' insistence won out. They insisted that Margaret was a proper name for a woman, and that if they had wanted to call her Margie, then they would have named her that instead. Each time that Margaret heard the length of her name, be it at church, at her grandparents', during the first day of roll at school, or anywhere else, she insisted on just being called Margie. But no one ever obliged. Margaret, as they would say, was just such a pretty name. During her engagement to Dennis Thatcher, her disdain for her name only grew more severe, as Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister. Dennis, that's Dennis with two N's, not one, as she had told countless reporters, was a cheerful and lively man, and she knew that it would only break his heart if she told him that she would not take his last name. So the two were wed, and she became Margaret Thatcher. Just not that Margaret Thatcher. One summer morning, Dennis went out for a jog in the neighborhood park to work off some of his weight when something unfortunate happened. Two younger gentlemen, Chad and Brad, were playing frisbee golf in the park and asked if Dennis would like to join. Always eager to make new friends, Dennis joined for a quick game. The objective of frisbee golf is to aim a frisbee into a basket and move on to the next basket until eventually all baskets have been cleared. This ridiculous game is made that much more ridiculous when played in a park, especially a park that did not have a single basket. This neighborhood park, like most neighborhood parks, is situated by the road. Inevitably, a frisbee will be picked up by the wind and fly into the street, where someone then has to go retrieve it. Dennis had never played frisbee golf before, and his frisbee whisked into the street and landed in the middle. Being ever the show-off, he took a dive into the street without any regard for traffic or for his age. When he dove, he landed headfirst, slamming his skull onto the concrete. By the time a stranger called for an ambulance, it was far too late, and Brad and Chad had left the scene. Desperate to make ends meet without her sweet Dennis, she did the one thing she swore she'd never do. She began to use her name to her advantage. Margaret Thatcher's Baking Service. Here to prime your meals and make you a little bit sweeter. So sinful that you'll have to confess to your minister. News about Dennis's death, along with her UK flourishes, made Margaret Thatcher's baked goods more popular than she could handle. Her supplies were wearing thin, and the demand only grew higher. She wasn't sure what to do. The death of Dennis Thatcher weighed heaviest on the mind of coach Ronald McDowland, who had sent his star athletes, Brad and Chad, to play frisbee golf at the park to begin with on the day of Dennis's death. He had been quite stingy on funds and sent the pair to play on a walking trail as opposed to driving them to a real course. Ronald McDowland knew that families, small children, and runners frequented the park, and that there were no frisbee golf baskets, let alone a course. But he just hadn't really felt like driving the van 15 miles to an actual course. So he used the funds that he had saved to provide Margaret Thatcher with the funds that she needed. When Ronald McDoland told her his reasonings for the donation, the hatred that Margaret had for Chad and Brad reached its peak. Knowing this, and with a roaring hatred for Brad and Chad, she knew just what to do to help out her shop. She studied forensics and combined it with her baking prowess to create a new Sunday limited time special, Frisbee Tarts.